What is an EFE matrix? EFE Matrix is a strategic tool used by companies to evaluate their current strategies. This by considering the key external factors in the company's environment that may affect its performance. The key external factors should be extracted from a previous deep analysis of the company, such as a SWOT analysis. It may include trade agreements, supply chain issues, information on competitors, market fluctuation, legislation, and much more. Identified. Categorize the key external factors, either opportunities or threats. Consider which factors could potentially benefit or harm your company. Opportunities are areas in which the company has a chance to take advantage of and potentially increase their market shares. The threats of a company are any external factors that could potentially harm, negatively impact the company, and reduce their market shares. It's also very important to consider your enemies, which are your competitors, to see how they react to the factors that are in hand. These factors are also the same thing for them, the same thing for us. They're either opportunities or they're threats. And to see how they react to them is important for you to go on and see how you should react to them. If they're going to go one way, you should probably go the other way to just make it, to see which way is better. In the end, it will give you a better idea on how your company will go in for the long run. This is only step one, so there are 4 other steps to this matrix, and you'll hear about it from my colleagues.
Weight should vary from 0.0 to 1.0 for each significant component. Weights help us understand how vital it is for a business to prosper in trade. Hence, if no weights remain provided, entire features would be equally significant, especially being impossible within present reality. All weights must be equivalent to 1.0. Separate variables should not be given too much significance, because one or few elements seldom determine the success of an industry. In our first example, processed food sector in a large market will increase 15%. The contract expires in 2 months with the main customer. That's 0.24 points. This may be authorized next year, 0.17 points. And new law requiring a 20% reduction in the amount of sugar in food, 0.14. The values in the external matrix are how well the current strategy of the business responds to risks and opportunities. The ratings vary from 4 to 1, where 4 show a fantastic reaction, 3 above average reaction, 2 ordinary, and 1 poor reaction. Each component is subjected to ratings and weights. In this case, we observe that the company's response to the odds is extremely poor, since just 1 chance earned a 3, while the rest received a 1. In particular, the company is best prepared to handle the dangers. The score is multiplied by the score by weight. A score must be established for each essential aspect. The weighted total is just the sum of all weighted results. The overall score of 1 to 4 in both matrices may be the same for the company. The total score is 2.5 on average. An external evaluation reveals that the business strategies to meet the possibilities and combat risks are not properly prepared. A low score indicates in internal evaluation that the company is weak compared to its opponents.
Hey everyone! So my designated step is step 3 of the external factor matrix. Step 3 involves assigning a rating to various external factors such as opportunities and threats. These ratings indicate how well a company is responding to or handling opportunities or threats that they are facing, and how well their strategies are combating those external factors. The rating scale is numbered between 1 and 4, with 1 being a poor response, 2 being an average response, 3 being an above average response, and 4 being a superior response. Any opportunity or any threat can receive a rating at any given time. The ratings can be applied differently to opportunities and differently to threats, meaning one opportunity may not receive the same rating as a different opportunity, and the same thing applies to threats. What's important to remember when assigning a rating is how well the company's strategy maximizes on those opportunities and how well the company is able to mitigate or lessen the threats that are facing them. When assigning a rating, it is also important to consider how well a company is able to earn and maintain a competitive advantage through their strategies and within their industry. The higher the rating, the higher the likelihood that the company's strategies are positioning the company really well and really high within that industry. One more important thing to note is that ratings, however they are assigned, are not based on the overall industry, such as the food industry, for example. So the food industry alone would not receive just one rating per opportunity or one rating per threat. For example, McDonald's would receive a different rating on opportunities than Burger King would. So McDonald's could be really well at implementing strategies to combat threats and to maximize on opportunities, so they can get a rating of 4, a superior response. But Burger King, for example, can receive a poor rating response, so 2. So it all depends on the company. It does not depend on the industry as a whole. This was the external factor matrix step 3 of assigning factors, and it's really all about how well each individual company can implement, formulate strategies to combat these external factors. Thank you, guys.
Step 4 is the shortest step. Obtain your weighted scores. Along each row in an EFE matrix, you multiply the factor's weight by its rating to figure out the weighted score for every factor. Using our local 10-theater cinema complex example, you can see in opportunity number 2 that 0.08 weight times 4, the rating, equals the weighted score of 0.32. Step 5, and the final step of our EFE matrix, is to obtain the total weighted score. Add up all of the weighted scores in both opportunity and threat sections to find the total weighted score for the company. No matter how many factors there are, a total weighted score for a company will always range from 1.0 to 4.0. The average score is a 2.5. Total weighted scores of 1.0 to 2.5 could mean that the company is not capitalizing on opportunities or they're avoiding external threats. Total weighted scores below 2.5 mean that an organization has a difficult time responding to external factors. This indicates that a company might need a new strategy or direction. A total weighted score of 3.5 or above shows that the company is capitalizing on several external opportunities and diminishing many threats in its industry. While a decision on one of these external factors in the EFE matrix might seem small to us, it could mean billions of dollars at stake at an organization's future.
Now that we've discussed all the steps in the EFE matrix, let's go through an example using a local 10-theater cinema complex as a test case. In step 1, we can see that the executives and strategists at the cinema complex produced a full list of key external factors and narrowed the dataset to include the top 20 key external factors, specifically 10 opportunities and 10 threats that were most relevant to their mission and goals. In step 2, they assigned a weight to each of the opportunity factors and to each of the threat factors, ranging from the least important of 0.01 to the most important of 1. So for example, we can see that the opportunity that received the highest weight is the development of 2 neighborhoods nearby, and the threat that received the highest weight is the trend towards healthy eating is eroding concession sales. They then gave each factor a rating, indicating how well they are responding to an opportunity or mitigating a threat. The rating ranges from 1, a poor response, to 4, where the response is considered superior. They then multiplied the weight by the rating to produce a weighted score for each factor, and then summed all the weighted scores to determine the total weighted score for the company. This EFE analysis provides some key insight for the cinema complex. Based on the weight, we can see that the most important factor to success is mitigating the threat of the trend toward healthy eating, eroding concession sales. We also see that the cinema is doing great at taking advantage of the TDB University, expanding 6% annually, and the trend toward healthy eating, eroding concession sales. Maybe they're offering healthier options at the concession stands. The overall weighted score for the cinema is 2.58, which is an above average of 2.5. This means that while they're better than average at maximizing the opportunities and mitigating threats, they have room to improve. As you can see by the ratings, the cinema needs to better maximize the opportunity of the 2 new neighborhoods that are developing within 3 miles, and they need to strategize around the threat of movies rented last quarter from Time Warner are up 15%. We can also take a look at an actual EFE matrix that was done for Kroger, one of the largest U.S. grocery retailers. Let's look at some of the key points. Looking at the weights, we can see that the most important external factor is Amazon acquiring Whole Foods Market. Kroger has an overall weighted score of 3.03, which is well above average. Based on the ratings, an opportunity that Kroger could focus on maximizing for further improvement is the National Retail Federation estimates an 8 to 12% U.S. e-commerce growth in the next year. So perhaps Kroger should focus on improving its online presence and offerings. I hope we all learned a lot reviewing this matrix, and these examples show us the practical application of the EFE matrix.